Could Trump's tariffs have a positive environmental impact? Shocking, we know. Donald Trump's 10% tariff on China-made goods might change shopping habits. Previously, fast fashion companies such as Temu and Shein, I don't know how you say that, could ship packages under $800 into the US duty-free, but no more. We're going to get into why that might be a good thing. I'm Maggie Gehlsen-Burnett.
And I'm Mallory Hagan. This is Pretty Furious. This episode is brought to you by the 100% women-owned and run brand Basic. Since 2016, Basic has empowered connection and conscious consumption among folks that believe that what we buy and wear should align with our values. From Southern makers to global fair trade brands, all apparel, art, and decor at Basic is responsibly made by individuals paid living wages within dignified working spaces. Basic also believes that businesses play an integral role in improving conditions, opportunities, and resources for others. As such, they donate a portion of every sale to human rights efforts. Visit Basic in person, downtown Birmingham, Alabama, or shop online at www.abasicshop.com. Use code PRETTYFURIOUS for 15% off your first purchase. Maggie,
Hello.
You're giving Trump credit for something? Get out of here.
I literally can't stand him.
I can't even do it, but I will, solely for the subject matter that's coming down the line in this episode. Super excited about it.
I will say, me as well. This episode is so good. And I will just say that if Donald Trump is the one who ends up taking away Republicans' access to Shein or like ends up reducing it, I just think that's going to be the most diabolical thing that will ever happen ever. Them not being able to access their Shein, like
live, laugh, love sign that goes over the couch.
God bless this mess. Let go and let God. Like, that will be absolutely, I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. Yeah. Take it away.
It's
Take it away, Donald.
really going to be something, but it will potentially reduce folks' ability to consume goods that are not so great for us. Shannon's going to talk to us a little bit about that, and I'm looking forward to it. I do have to tell you, Maggie, you look beautiful today. You also are giving Julia Sugarbaker.
Wait, that's Julia Sugarbaker? Who's that?
What?
Oh God. Hang
on. No. I'm not cutting this out.
I know you're not. Hang on. Oh my God. Hang on. Let's
So Maggie looked up who Julia Sugarbaker is. She's wearing red.
A lot alike. I'm screaming. Honestly, slay.
I'm afraid I'm like busting the mic with my laughter, but
I'm sweating. Oh my God, that's incredible. I thought to myself, I was like, oh, she's gonna say like Jackie O. I'm so excited.
I mean, cut from the same cloth, kind of. So now your homework is to go watch Julia Sugarbaker's monologue about Miss Georgia.
Oh my God, say less. Okay, I'll report back next time on this endeavor.
I simply cannot wait.
I'm hot.
This is getting more and more fun by the recording.
It really is.
Hopefully our audio is getting better by the recording as well.
Yes, I think it is. And if we have anybody who is listening who wants to be a pro bono audio producer, please let us know. We would love that. That would be super fun for us.
Yeah, we're building this ship as we go. Mm-hmm. But speaking of, we'd love for you to follow us along. So follow us on all of our social channels. We're literally everywhere at Pretty Furious Pod.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the Book of Face, as we've mentioned, because no thanks.
Because gross. Can't be pretty furious without being pretty first. So Mallory, what is your beauty product of the week?
So my beauty product, I am obsessed with First Aid Beauty. I have rosacea and very sensitive skin, very Irish. So often products can be really harmful for me, but not First Aid Beauty. And in particular, my product right now is the Bump Eraser Body Scrub. I think in the winter months, your skin is dry, and I'm always so itchy. Everything is
Yeah.
always itching. So the Bump Eraser body scrub is really such a great exfoliant and allows me to get things all nice and smooth in the shower. And then I put on my lotion that's also from First Aid Beauty, and I rock and roll. What about you?
I love First Aid Beauty. Okay, so this is another brand that like I think across the board really nails it. It's the OGX brand. This is the coconut miracle oil. So it's just a coconut oil essentially that you like put into your hair. You can do it as like a mask before you wash it. You can do it as like just on the ends. You can do it as like a shine situation. But I love it. This is like, I don't know, $7 at the drugstore, and it lasts forever, obviously, because you don't need a ton of it. So, and it smells really good. So,
Would you say the brand is again?
OGX.
OGX.
Organics, I think is how you like say the full thing. But I've used their stuff for a very long time, and I've always been very impressed by it. So, yes.
Love that.
Cool.
So we were pretty. Now we're furious. I'm going to lead with my headline today.
Let's get into it.
Okay, my headline comes from NBC News, and it is, quote, NASA Space Observatory poised to launch on a mission to map 450 million galaxies. And to that I say, could we just get some fucking healthcare? Why?
And to that I say,
I say, why are we spending all that money, Elon Musk?
That's insane. 450 million galaxies?
450 million galaxies we're going to map out, but we can't feed children or the elderly.
What about this galaxy?
Like, what about the planet we are literally standing on?
I hate it here. Take me with you.
I was going to say, it's a 2-year mission. Get me off the planet for 2 years. I'd like to go. Thank you so much.
Incredible. All right. So my headline here is from Axios. Senate sets up vote to restrict trans women from women's sports. And I just want to note, so a few weeks ago, someone on Instagram who I like knew from high school had posted this thing about...
This is not going well.
This is not going to go.
Someone I knew from high school.
Yeah.
Parentheses, that's an idiot.
This is small town Eastern Iowa. So this is like not good to start.
Relatable.
So they basically posted this thing saying how this was a good thing, how this ban was going to protect women, going to protect our daughters, going to protect blah, 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 fill in the blank about how trans people are the devil. Okay. And she phrased it in the sense that she is a like health and wellness practitioner. So like I use that practitioner very loosely. So she's like a personal trainer. And she says that she's like, from a biological standpoint, this is science. Like, this is science. They shouldn't be able to participate because they have an upper hand. And I was like, okay, so first of all, when I get really pissed off when I read stuff on like just the interweb or like when someone posts something stupid, I love to go to like an AI bot and look at what their reply would be to the thing, just because I think it's fun. And like, I don't ever use them, obviously, but just because I'm just curious. And my little chat GPT was like, this is actually objectively false. So first of all, I was like, should I send her a screenshot? Anyway, I just unfollowed her. But yeah, I mean, it is objectively false. After you are on hormone replacement therapy for a certain period of time too, the argument of testosterone being higher is a moot point. Like, that's completely inaccurate. And yeah, that's all I've got to say there, is that you're all wrong.
Here's my thing. Do not claim to care about protecting women in sports or in bathrooms if you do not vote to protect women in every other scenario.
That's the one.
And that's that. Moving on. Bye. Yeah. Anyway, speaking of women that we like and love, we've got Shannon coming on and we're really excited. Shannon is like a Renaissance woman. Every time I talk to her, she is doing a new project. She's incredible. So Shannon is an author, a podcast host, a mother of three, and a military wife. Her book, You're Completely Normal, debuted as an Amazon Top 50 hot new release in 2020. And her podcast, Paring Down, has reached the top 1% of all podcasts in just over 1 year. She is a former Miss New York, that's how I know her, in the Miss America organization, a former professional vocalist, and she holds a degree in psychology. Her online platform, Paring Down, is built around helping people declutter their homes and schedules in order to make room for what matters without judgment, shame, or comparison. Let's welcome Shannon.
Shannon, welcome. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am honored and so excited.
Amazing.
I can't believe it. I can't believe that we have Shannon on. Shannon and I have been friends for, I think we're going on 13, 14 years, something of that nature.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
2011, I think. So 14 years.
Yeah, that is wild.
That is.
Don't even get me started. I've been having like an existential, I don't feel 36, but then I turn around and I'm like, oh my God, where did the last however many years go?
It's
crazy.
Very weird. I'm still used to being like, oh, high school, like 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh, my high school 20-year reunion is next year. So that's no longer accurate.
Correct. Yeah. It's kind of crazy how that is. All right. So you brought a headline for us that's made you pretty furious. What you got?
I brought to you, quote, the secret behind Temu's rock bottom prices from theconversation.com. The secret is basically unethical practices, of course. And that comes because they have a different kind of business model than maybe even the Amazons or the Walmarts of the world, which aren't so great in and of themselves. However, Temu holds these reverse auctions, basically, where manufacturers who are making the clothing or whatever it is bid against each other to offer the lowest prices. So they are the ones that store the supplies versus Amazon will buy X amount of whatever, right? And then they are the ones that hold on to it and have to sell that inventory. Temu doesn't operate that way. So it's the sellers that are at risk, essentially. And so because of that and driving down those really low prices because they want the opportunity to sell on Temu, then of course you're going to be looking at those extreme price pressures that lead to worker exploitation, really low quality and unsafe products, all of those negative things that come about when people are just trying to do something at the cheapest price point possible.
Yeah. So this is going to tie in beautifully to your podcast and your mission. Paring Down is relatively new. You're about a year and a half in, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What inspired you initially to lean into the decluttering space?
Just personal experience, right? Like I woke up one day with 3 kids, don't know where they came from, and all of their stuff, and I looked around my house and I was just exhausted. It just felt like it was one big to-do list looking at me at all times. Pick up the toys, get the dishes done, do 1,000 loads of laundry with the baby stuff, make sure the house looks nice. And, there was just so much. And when you have so much stuff, eventually it just feels like you're drowning in it. So like most of us in 2020, I watched The Home Edit on Netflix and I watched Tidying Up with Marie Kondo. And it really hit home for me. And I thought, okay, this is what I need to do. And part of me has always kind of done that. I've never been a particularly excessive person. I grew up in a home where my mom made it very clear that name brands do not matter. She always said, it's not that you don't have enough space, it's that you have too much stuff. Like I remember these things coming out of my mom's mouth. But as most of us, we don't really turn into our parents until we're in our 30s. So in my 20s, I was just off the deep end. I was like, give me forever, all the Forever 21 brands or trends, all of that, right? And then I have kids, I wake up, I turn into my mother and I'm like, we have too much stuff, And so it wasn't so much hard for me to part with the idea of decluttering, but I had to actually put it into practice. And so in the process of doing that, I shared that online on my personal page, and there was always a huge response to that. Everyone was like, oh, I feel this too. Or man, that looks so great. You make me want to do it. And so we are a Coast Guard family. And at the time that I was sharing, I was living in Alaska and we moved to Florida in 2022. And that's when I thought, you know what? I enjoy listening to podcasts as I'm decluttering about decluttering, right? It motivates you to keep going. And so I figured I'm going to start one too, because I think that there needs to be more of this voice in the world. When we have so much coming at us for the consumption, we really need to counteract it with more voices about letting go and not over consuming. So I started the Paring Down podcast, and I started an Instagram page from zero. Like, I just started it on October 1st of 2023. And it really took off. It kind of blew up in last summer in 2024. And all of a sudden I have over 200,000 Instagram followers. I have 70 something thousand Facebook followers. It's just so clear that people feel this. We're exhausted by our stuff and we want to let it go. And so, we have the podcast, and that took off. And, I don't take credit for it. I really think this is just something that all of us are experiencing.
Yeah. You glossed over, though, that in your 20s, while you were consuming Forever 21 at a rapid pace, you were also living in New York City, which will teach you very quickly how you don't need so many things because you just don't have the space for them. So I think that's been interesting for me growing up in Alabama, where everyone has big houses and lots of space, up to New York. And then you're like, wow, you just simply cannot. You cannot.
I would say that when I was in New York was the most minimal I was in my 20s, because like you said, you just don't have room for it. There's nothing you can do. There's only so many summer outfits you can fit underneath your bed and then rotate out with your winter outfits in your closet,
Right.
But it's amazing how quickly that can go by the wayside once you move, right? I moved when I was 24, 25 down to the DC area, and then from there down to Virginia Beach, back to my hometown where I met my husband. And in that period of time, I just acquired more and more. I had my going out outfits from New York City, and then all of a sudden I was working in the federal sector. I had all my work clothes. I moved to Virginia Beach, and I just acquired more and more without getting rid of any. So I had all these past lives living in my closet until I decided to do something about it.
My dog?
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, like, we all have done pageants in our lives. And I think there has to be some sort of direct correlation between doing pageantry and just acquiring stuff. So when you talk about, this time in your life of moving from New York and then moving to Virginia, it's like that really sticks with me, in the sense that when I lived in New York, yes, I had like 2 suitcases, I think, to my name of stuff. And then when I moved back home during COVID, I just started acquiring more and more. So that makes total sense to me. And I would love to know the correlation between former pageant women and the amount of stuff that they just keep in their homes.
I would scientifically like to do that study personally, because I think it's so true. And as women who did pageants, so often that accidentally or sometimes intentionally got tied up with our identity, right? You were Miss America, you were Miss New York. And so it doesn't feel super great to let go of those high heels and those dresses that don't fit anymore, because suddenly that means you are no longer that person. And even for those of us who never really felt like we were pageant girls, at least I never identified that way. I know, Mal, you didn't. It was still kind of hard to let that piece of you go and be like, I am not the girl walking in the room turning heads with a crown on my head. I am wearing sneakers and shorts with my children and chasing them around a park, annoying the teenagers. You know what I mean? And so you have to really let go of who you used to be. And I think that can be particularly hard for women who their identity was wrapped up in how they looked and what they were wearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious how you think your degree in psychology shapes the way that you communicate with people about paring down, and also just online with your audience in general.
Yeah, I love psychology. With an undergrad degree in it, I'm, not qualified to do much, but it certainly is an interesting background to pull from. And I think it offers a level of empathy that is needed when we're talking about letting go of our belongings or reevaluating our relationship with consumption. What I want people to know is that it's a very normal compulsion to want to seek out new things, that there are certain psychological biases that keep us from letting things go, whether it's loss aversion or the endowment effect, where we place higher value on the things we own versus if someone else was selling the same thing. There are a lot of psychological components that go into this, even the attention economy, which is more of a behavioral economist type of a perspective. But we are drawn to our devices, not just because we have a lack of self-control, but because the longer we're scrolling, the more opportunity it is for us to see advertisements. And that is why they're trying to keep your attention. It's not because they just want to keep you from talking to your friends or interacting with your children. They don't care if you have a good relationship with your family or not. I'm sure they would love that for you. However, what they want is for your eyeballs to be on the screen so they can show you ads. And because of this attention economy, there is so much invested financially and otherwise from companies to figure out what's going to grab your attention and get you to buy more and more and more. So this isn't just a matter of a lack of self-control. There's a lot of psychology going on behind the scenes that it's going to be really hard for you to shake out of your brain and do something that goes against what your brain wants to do, which is to consume the information that's in front of us.
Yeah, totally. I think about this a lot as it relates to having ADHD and just kind of consistently looking for my next dopamine fix. And the more I learned about dopamine and about how my brain is wired, that really informed so much of my behaviors, when shopping online or just doing things generally or spending time on social media. But I'm curious to know how these worlds are all very much intertwined: fast fashion, environmentalism, consumerism. I'm curious to know if there's anything that has been really surprising that you've learned about how all of these worlds intersect.
Definitely. When I first started this decluttering process and even sharing about decluttering, it was really on the decluttering side of things, right? Getting stuff out of your house. But there are two sides to having too much stuff in your house. One is you're not getting rid of it. And the other one is what you're letting in, is the consumption piece. And that's the piece that in the last year and a half, I've started doing a deeper dive into, just because I have been learning so much about the fast fashion that, the headline I brought today kind of alludes to, and how that affects not only us and our health and our mental health, all of that, but also the world around us. And like I mentioned, I'm a mom of 3. And for me in the past, I think I was more willing to kind of shrug off the long-term effects of things that I didn't understand. Because at the end of the day, understanding what fast fashion looks like and what consumption is doing to our planet isn't particularly easy to wrap our heads around. And so it's much easier to kind of put your head in the sand and be like, oh, whatever. I'm not ruining the planet by buying an $8 shirt from Temu, right? And you kind of get that laissez-faire attitude about it. But what I realized is that I have a moral responsibility to my children to figure out, am I leaving behind a planet and that is sustainable for them? Am I raising them in a way that is going to give them higher quality of life? And because of that, I was willing to put more effort into figuring out the intentionality behind everything that I do and all the decisions I make, whether it's consumption and decluttering, to what I believe spiritually, to just how I show up in the world and my basic core values. And so I started to look more into the consumption piece. And global warming, I think, is a trigger word for many, right? It's a buzzword, but it's very triggering because people don't understand really what it is. I think, we just think, okay, whatever, I'm buying a shirt from Temu and people want to tell me it's global warming, and that's an exhausting thought. So for me, I had to really figure out, what is global warming, right? And I have some notes in front of me because I think this is important to just break it down when we're talking about how mass production of materials that then are not biodegradable end up in landfills, right? And when they're in landfills, they either slowly degrade, very, very slowly, and they in that process release different gases like methane, or they have to be burned, which in a faster process releases those same kinds of harmful gases. And those are greenhouse gases. So we're talking carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and water vapor. And those particular gases, they naturally trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. So this is called the greenhouse effect, right? And it helps keep the planet warm enough to support life. So that's a good thing. A certain amount is a good thing. But with human activity, with the burning of fossil fuels for energy energy, deforestation, industrial agriculture, that kind of thing. What we're doing is we're increasing the concentration of these not so bad greenhouse gases when they are, making the planet warm enough for us to go take a beach vacation and enjoy it, right? And we can survive here. But the problem is that they are now producing it in such a high amount that more heat is being trapped in our planet, which is then leading to what we call global warming. The planet is warming up. And this is not something that can just be politicized and kind of made up, right? In fact, of all the things that is easy enough for, I say easy because I don't know how to do it, but like easy enough for scientists to figure out is they can study what happens when something that is not biodegradable starts to degrade, and they can see what gases come out of it. They can pull that information from those materials and know without a doubt. So we know that this is happening. There's no way we can have just billions of tons of this biodegradable material on our planet, and it's not impacting our planet. That doesn't make sense. When you really think about it, it's obvious, right? And so for me, it's kind of a rebellion on behalf of my children and their children to say, do I really think that me being interested in keeping up with all these dumb little trends, that what are they supposed to make me more accepted by my peers? Are they supposed to make me look cuter to people? Why? So I'm more attractive? Is that really what matters more so than my children? Or maybe it's not going to affect them, but their kids? Do I not have enough empathy to say that I don't need a closet full of crap in order to make sure that my children's children are alive and well, that my kids don't have to go through watching their children suffer, or my grandkids don't have to watch their children suffer, or however long down the line it gets. I care about those people even if I never meet them. And to me, that is basic human empathy.
I think for so many different issues, this one included, basic human empathy tends to be missing. One of the first classes I took at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, which is where I went to school, was actually fashion ethics, where it was a marriage of traditional ethics and how that applies to the fashion industry globally. And when you study that and you learn, I believe that 1 in 6 people globally is somehow tied to the fashion industry, and that those greenhouse gases that are emitted and the water that's polluted and our land that's polluted, all due to the fact that you just need to have one more white t-shirt or one more sweater. It's really alarming when you start to think about it. And I was really grateful to learn that at a young age, because it does help when you go into the store and you're like, I really don't actually need that. I might want it. I'm being told on TikTok and on Instagram that this is the whatever of the season. But at the end of the day, it's not going to serve me in the long run, and it doesn't serve our planet. What I do find though, you're talking about your children. I now have children. I'm a bonus mom. So I think a lot about what this world looks like for them. But there are people who don't have children and they think, okay, I'm not going to be here. I don't really care, which is not the best way to look at the world, but those people do exist. We have to admit. So what do you say to someone who thinks that their shopping habits or consuming these fast fashion brands or other consumables, what do you say to them when they think that they're not having an impact?
I think there's a two-parter here. The first is that it is having an impact on you individually. So if you say, I don't care about anyone else, I don't care about their kids and their kids and their kids, I only care about me. Well, then you still should care about this. 1, for your mental health. 2, for your physical health. We'll start with mental health. First of all, we know that being surrounded by a bunch of clutter, it makes it much harder. I mean, this has been supported by research, harder for you to focus. The decision fatigue leads to oftentimes to different mental health problems. And we cannot concentrate at the level that allows us to be successful, creative, etc., when we are surrounded by clutter. Again, this is research supported. And we also know that there's a correlation, not a causation. I'm a big fan of knowing the difference between the two of those. But there is a correlation by a study at UCLA that shows that women in particular, their cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone, rises alongside the amount of clutter in their space. I could go on a whole tangent about why that is more a higher level for women than for men. My theory is that, because it still rose with men. So my theory is that if you're stressed in life, maybe you have to work 3 jobs, maybe you have an illness, all of those things that could cause really, really high stress. You don't have time to declutter. You might be shopping as a form of coping, that kind of thing. And so the stress means that the clutter is there. It's not the clutter causing the stress. But the reason a woman's stress hormones react even higher is because we not only on top of those stressors causing the clutter are the ones that are expected to deal with it. So that's when we do see the clutter causing the stress. Again, this is not scientifically proven, but to me, it's pretty obvious if that a woman's cortisol levels are higher than a man's when it comes to the stress, but both are high. There's something else happening for women. There's something else there making it go up. You know what I mean? And I think it might be those expectations. So we have to consider that it is stressing us out. It is making us unable to focus, make decisions, be our best with whatever we're bringing to the table, be it creativity or otherwise. And it's just exhausting. All right. I don't know about you, but I don't want to spend all my time picking up the house. On the other side, there's also what's going on physically for you personally, right? So we talked about the chemicals that are released into the atmosphere that can affect the planet as a whole. But when we're talking about, let's say, fast fashion in particular, we're looking at these cheaper quality materials, right? Because again, they are trying to get it into our hands as cheaply as possible. And so they're not going to use high quality materials, which cost more to resource. So when we're using unregulated dyes and flame retardants and these things that cause skin irritation and allergies and hormone disruption, right? That is problematic for anybody wearing these clothing. Some clothes even contain carcinogenic, never say that word correctly. I think I did, but chemicals. We're talking about like phthalates, which are absorbed through the skin. If you think about different different medicines, right? They give you something to rub onto your skin because our skin is our biggest organ. So whether it's the lotion you're putting on or something that they gave you at the doctor's office to treat a rash, it is being absorbed into our skin. And that includes the clothing we're wearing. So when they are made with these dangerous chemicals, it is actually going into our bodies as we're wearing them. And that's why we are seeing such a higher rate of chronic illness and even obviously cancer, that kind of thing. And we can say, oh, we don't know that's true. But at the end of the day, we can't deny the fact and the correlation and all of the obvious reasons why we might be seeing more of this in our daily world. I think people, if they can't see it, if it's not tangible in front of them, it's so easy to brush it off like, oh, that's not real. But that's so silly. 7 million people didn't die of COVID just because they just died, right? Like they died of COVID because it's an invisible strain. It's a virus that you cannot see, but it is very real. And we have to accept that that is the case, that if I'm not just looking at a white shirt, I'm also looking at what is the white shirt made of and what is that doing to my body personally. So whether you care about a bunch of other people, you should really be caring about what you put on your body. And if it is fast fashion, I promise you, you do not want those toxins inside of you.
That makes me think of this episode is sponsored by Basic. And Shannon, you had the opportunity to interview Lacey, who's the owner of that store, and not the exact opposite of fast fashion, really sustainably made clothing. And they just really put an effort into what they're carrying in their store and how it does impact people. And it makes me think of people like Lacey, where I'm like, thank you for offering that to the world and for sharing with not only women, but people in general, the opportunity to purchase from people who are doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing.
Well, first of all, I'm obsessed with Lacey. She just texted me this morning. She didn't even know we were recording today.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. And, she makes a great point too. When she came on my podcast, she really opened my eyes too, to the fact that, as busy, like a busy mom or whoever, I would say, I can't afford an $80 white t-shirt. That is going to, whatever. I have to take to a dry cleaner. Like that is just not practical for my life. And so I asked her these hard questions about slower fashion that makes them, in my head, impractical for daily life. And she just revealed so much about that, right? Like if you have true 100% cotton in 100% linen and the different kinds of garments that are made with high quality material, which she sells at Basic, then you actually can machine wash those and they're not going to shrink like all the stuff made from plastic that then you have to throw away and go consume more of it. So you're buying $8 t-shirts for $64, right? And that's going to last you for 6 months because it shrinks every time you wash it. Or you can buy one white t-shirt for $64 and that will last you forever because you can wash it over and over again and it's high quality. So it's not going to, just fall apart in the washing machine. So, I loved that episode. I love Lacey and everything she stands for.
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen that little gif of SpongeBob where he's sitting in the chair and he's like, I'm a head out, and he like stands up really slow out of his chair? That's sort of like where my brain goes when you talk about all of the health factors associated with all of this, because I I'm somebody who I identify as being health conscious. I feel like I have a good understanding of health and wellness and, that world. And that is all information that I would have never considered in a million years had somebody not shared that with me. Like, that is a fantastic lens to view this through, is even if you don't maybe have empathy for other people, which is a problem in and of itself, but maybe if that is you, then at least consider how this impacts your own health and well-being. So that is just absolute mic drop on that entire piece of this conversation. So one thing that you talk a lot about is about how decluttering cannot be the only thing that's in place to essentially like fix all of the problems within a home. So I'm curious to know from your perspective, what other factors have to be in place in order for a household to thrive after that decluttering process begins?
Sure. And I'm gonna jump back before I answer that question. And just I want to bring up a point as we were talking about the effects of our clothing on our health and really everything we've talked about so far. I think with decluttering and consumption and really anything that is worth doing, we don't want perfection to be the enemy of good. I think one of the biggest reasons that people throw their hands up in the air is because it feels impossible to get it all right. So why even try? And so I just want to encourage anyone listening just to do the best you can. Right. I remember last August, I was getting ready to go on a vacation with my family, and because of being a woman and my body fluctuates, I did not have enough clothing to get through 7 days of warm weather. And so I wanted to make sure I purchased something that I would wear in regular life too, right? Not just for vacation. And so I wanted a tennis dress. I was like, that would be really practical. And I scoured the internet for an ethically made tennis dress, which took far longer than it should to find. Finally ordered it. I tried it on. I looked terrible in it. There's no way I was going to wear this thing. And so you know what I did? I went on Amazon and I ordered myself a tennis dress for $25, and it fit and it looked great. I felt great on vacation and I still have it. So what I want you to know is that it's not a terrible thing if you have to occasionally just do what's easiest for you and for your life. The key is to make consistent, intentional effort to find alternatives, to do what you can. And that in itself, if all of us just make a 50% change in the right direction, then we will see a tremendous benefit to the world and to ourselves. The problem is we get wrapped up in doing it all right, and so we throw out the baby with the bathwater. So I just want to encourage you, if you're listening and feeling overwhelmed about whatever it might be, you don't have to make all the changes overnight, and you don't have to do it all perfectly. To answer your question about decluttering, I'm trying to remember what it was.
Yeah. What other factors just have to be in place for it to really like improve the household as a whole?
Yes, thank you. Again, we have to look at everything holistically. Nothing exists in a vacuum. You could get rid of all of the clutter in your house, but if you and your partner have a volatile relationship, you're not going to be very happy. You know what I mean? So if you are still struggling with serious mental health, or you are, have a toxic boss at work, or there are a million different things that could be causing you to feel stressed out when you're at home, then no amount of decluttering is going to change that. You know what I mean? I do think that it's a piece of the puzzle that is, for the most part, within our control. There's a lot in life that's not within our control. And I do think that that is a powerful aspect of decluttering, is we can decide that the stuff does not have a hold on us, that we can say, I do not need to keep up with every trend. I can get rid of this and trust that I will be okay in my future without a million what ifs scenarios that run through your head, right? It's empowering and it's freeing to let all of that go and have only what you need for present day. And we can talk about nostalgia and sentimental items, because I'm certainly not against those by any means. But the idea is to keep what you use and love right now. Because the big thing that a lot of people focus on when they in their head start going through the excuses of why they can't declutter is, oh, well, my partner has a bunch of stuff, I can't get rid of it, or my kids have a bunch of stuff and I don't want to deprive them. We could talk about I mean, there's just so many different things that come into play, right? In the house that makes it a stressful place to be. The schools are sending home so much stuff. The kids have friends. They go to birthday parties and they get stuff from there. Like, I mean, there's a million reasons why we can say decluttering is impossible. So it is important to look at the holistically. What are we doing that maybe we need to work on? Or do I need to work on my relationship? If my partner says, well, I don't care about the stuff that doesn't stress me out, so it's not my problem. Well, to me, that sounds like a relationship issue. I don't know about you, but I want to be with somebody who cares about my experience, right? Or if the expectation, if it's stressing you out because the expectation is that you are the one to take care of it all, again, what's going on there in terms of an equal partnership, or at least a fair one, right? Eve Rodsky does wonderful work on relationship fairness rather than equality. Love her. And things don't have to be 50-50. I think that's what trips people up, but it needs to be fair. And if you're expected to be the one managing the house and dealing with the mental load of the home without any help from the other viable adult in your home, then that is a problem. So, I would just encourage people to remember that if you're stressed out at home, decluttering is a great step in the right direction, but you need to take into consideration what else is going on. Have you not been able to have those conversations with your children that help them realize that stuff isn't what's going to make them happy? So are they throwing fits at the store because they are used to being, quote, spoiled, right? Do they recognize that giving, generosity is better than receiving? Is that a core value in your family? Those are the kinds of things we really have to take a look at and make a concerted effort to change if we're actually going to see a difference in our home in the long run.
That's actually something I wanted to ask you about. So I think for people our age, 30s, a little older, it gets easier to let go of societal pressures as you age. You become more confident, self-aware. You're okay saying, I don't need the latest fad tennis shoe. I don't need to dress like I'm 20. It's not a big deal. But for younger people, those social pressures of needing the next thing or the coolest thing or what their friend has at school can be really difficult. So can you maybe help us with some tools, first and foremost, for our kids, if we have them, helping them understand that more is not always better and that we can be happy with what we have?
Yes. I cannot speak to this as a whole. I only have me and my kids, and they are ages 3, 5, and 7. I am not a parent of a middle schooler or teenager. So I don't like to say what you should or shouldn't do, especially if you don't have personal experience. I will say something that has helped my kids a lot is physical boundaries. That also helps us, right? So I can say to my kids, I love that you're super into X, Y, and Z, maybe stuffies, for example. My daughter's really big into stuffed animals, but here's your stuffy bin. And your stuffed animal collection has to fit in this bin. So if you want to get another stuffy, you ask for that for your birthday or for Christmas, or that's your one souvenir that you get on vacation, then we need to take a look. Will it fit in your bin? If it won't, what stuffy do we need to part with? This isn't to encourage the cycle of consumption and decluttering. I want to make that clear, but that will be part of life, especially for kids as they grow and their interests change and that kind of thing. Inevitably, there's going to be new stuff coming in and more stuff going out. And that just speaks to development. Okay. It doesn't make you or your children a bad person. But these physical boundaries are really helpful. I think that should work theoretically with teenagers or middle schoolers, right? Hey, I get it. You want a pair of jeans that are cool. And maybe that's okay with you. Maybe you say, fine, you can have this cool pair of jeans if that's what you want for your birthday. But you have one half of the drawer of your dresser that is dedicated to jeans. We don't need more than 2 jeans really in life, maybe 3. And so if it does not fit in that drawer, we cannot purchase another pair of jeans. So there's that physical boundary that helps younger people wrap their heads around just the basic idea of respecting our space, right? And not being overwhelmed by stuffed drawers. And, my 7-year-old gets it. My 5-year-old gets it, that cleaning up the room is a lot harder when they have so much stuff. My 5-year-old, every time a friend comes over, gives them something to take home, which I then apologize to the parent. I'm so sorry. But she's like, I don't want to pick this up anymore. Like, she has learned it is not worth me cleaning up this doll. I don't love this doll enough anymore to continue cleaning it up. And she's
That's
fine.
amazing. I have to be honest, the concept of a physical boundary is not something, A, that I've really thought much about, and B, I don't know that I would have thought of. But if this doesn't fit in the space that you have allocated for this thing, then we have to find a different avenue to go down. Or I'm really big on generosity, and our kids are a little young for regular volunteering, maybe certain events. So I think helping them understand that somebody else might be able to use this thing that you no longer want anymore, and making it a regular thing that we, go through everything that we have and what are you not using as much of, and how can we make room for the things that you do want if that's what you want to do.
Well, kids do better when it's not abstract. So if you say you have too much stuff, they don't know what that means. They need the physical boundary to understand that concept. And same with generosity. I encourage people to remember that this doesn't just mean taking things to Goodwill, though I do not demonize Goodwill. But for example, my daughter, there's one family at church. I don't even know them that well, but they were the only ones in my sphere that I could identify that had a daughter about a year younger than mine. And so when I have the nicer dresses and the nicer shoes that are still in really good shape that I want to give, I bring them for this girl at church. And so the other day at church, Jojo walked up to her. I was chatting with her mom, and Jojo goes, "I had those shoes." And I said, "Those were your shoes. Those, she's wearing them. Those were yours, Jojo." When we talk about giving things away, it becomes less abstract when they're able to actually see it in action. So I encourage you, especially with younger people, but even with teenagers or with ourselves, if you can find somebody to actively use it, that you're able to know that they're using it, whether it's you see it visually or you can at least point out that's the person it went to, it becomes a lot easier of a process to be generous.
Yeah, totally. Wow, I think that's so powerful, because as a full functioning adult, I think even having a physical boundary and being able to, understand that my space is the space I've got and I don't have anything else there is no other space for it to go. That's like, I'm in this kind of tiff with my mother about how she wants to get rid of stuff from her and my dad's house, and she wants to give it to me from my childhood, but I don't want to take it because I don't have space for it in my house and they have space in their house. And it's just this like constant battle of like, who's going to take all of the old grade school papers. And so I think that is a extremely helpful reframe of the space you have, and understanding like, kind of the premise of, what do you really need? What do you really need? What do you really need to hold on to? And holding on sometimes can be more of a mental battle than we would be willing to engage with otherwise. So I just love that. I love that premise. But
Maggie, that makes me think of my very best friend growing up. It's like a sister to me. And she was raised by her grandparents who passed away really close to each other. And so we cleaned out their home and we went through everything. And she had things like her senior portrait and like art that she did in high school. And she was in the band dance line. So she's got the signed poster, like all of these material items that actually were very sentimental and matter to her. But she lives in Denmark now, and she lives in less than 1,000 square feet with her husband. They don't have storage, and it certainly is not feasible to send all of those things across the pond. So we spent some time laying it all out, taking really nice photographs of each one of those items, videoing them if they needed like more angles. And we created a Google Drive. And now she has access to all of those things in a visual format. But we did save, now my house is storage. We did save some things that I'm holding on to for her as she can little by little take them with her. But I just think some people forget that like the schoolhouse papers and the things that you have from when your kids are little. Shannon and I have bonded over the fact that we make yearbooks at our house. Like, take pictures of all the art, make a yearbook. Wow. There are ways to hold on to those memories and that are practical and allow for you to let go of the physical item and still be able to hold on to the memory of it.
Yeah.
But that may lead to maybe our last question, Shannon. What are some small steps people can take to begin the process of paring down their lives?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Gosh, it's so hard. I want to talk about it all. I'm like, yes, let's talk about sentimental items, right? Like I still have my mom's bike helmet. She passed away, and I still have physical things that I hold on to. So that, just so you guys know, is not completely off the table, right? However, let's talk about this last question. So some first steps you can take to paring down. I would say the biggest one is to identify your why. I do have a free Know Your Why worksheet. And the reason I created that is because if you don't know why you're doing this on a deeper level, then you're just going to get pulled into all of those really, like I said, those psychological advertisements that are there to snag you. You're not going to be able to fight those off if you don't have this deeper why. So, we have to really think about those bigger questions of our core values and how they relate to our stuff if we're going to see, positive and consistent lasting progress. So that's the first step I would do, is really start asking yourself, why do I want to do this on a deeper level? And then the next step, I would say, if you're talking about decluttering, the decluttering side of things, is to choose a space that you access a lot. So you're going to see it daily, because when you declutter something, you get that big dopamine hit. It feels really good. We've all decluttered the junk drawer, and then you just open it to look at it, just to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? So you want to start somewhere that you're going to see regularly, because that will motivate you to want to keep going. Another big piece of where you want to start is somewhere that doesn't have those sentimental items. So I often suggest the entryway, a mudroom. Those are really good places to start. Also, because you can zone down. That's the thing too. You don't want to take everything out of your closet and Marie Kondo it, especially when you're starting. Decluttering is a muscle. You will get better at it as you go. But if you try and go too hard, too fast, you're never going to, quote, go to the gym again. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's going to hurt too bad. You're going to be like, that was miserable. Don't want to do that again. So choose a space you can really zone down. So let's take the mudroom. You see it all the time. You can zone down and say, today I'm going to do the shoes. Tomorrow I'm going to do the hat box. The next day I'm going to do the coats. Whatever you keep in your entryway, you can zone it down. I also suggest doing your underwear drawer. This is a big one. You see it every day. You open it. There's nothing better that when you go into your drawer that you can pick out a pair of socks that don't have holes in them and they don't, fall down among your heel when you're walking and be annoying. You pick out a pair of underwear that doesn't ride up, doesn't give you panty lines, whatever it is, right? It's a great place to zone down. You see it every single day and it feels really, really good without sentimental items. Unless, I don't know your life. Maybe there's sentimental items in your underwear drawer, which that is your life. But I think it's a great place to start.
Amazing. I love it so much.
I love that. I love the underwear drawer, because you're right. When you're getting dressed, there's nothing like the fight of like, oh, I don't like that pair. And this pair of socks sucks. And I actually don't even like these. They're gray, but they're just still in my drawer because of whatever. So
declutter them, get rid of them.
Yeah. I've got like 3 in my brain right now that I'm like, yeah, those are the worst pairs of underwear that I have. So,
well, and I think Shannon understands this as more than anyone, probably as a military family. But we're getting ready to move. We're not moving towns, but we are moving houses, and just giving yourself that benefit of like, when you do have to pick things up and put them in a box, if you've already done the decluttering process or gotten rid of things you don't need, it's like those life moments are so much easier. So much easier. So That's our mission over the next 6 weeks. We've got about 6 weeks till we move. So I'm like, each weekend we're choosing a room and throwing away the stuff we don't need and trying to get some boxes packed and just little by little it. How do you eat an elephant? Yeah. One bite at a time.
This episode is brought to you by Basic. Located in the heart of downtown Birmingham, Alabama, Basic is a 100% women-owned and run slow fashion and ethical lifestyle store. All apparel, art, and decor at Basic is responsibly made by individuals paid living wages within dignified working spaces. In addition, they donate a portion of every sale to human rights efforts. You can visit Basic in person in downtown Birmingham, Alabama, or shop at www.abasicshop.com. Use code PRETTYFurious for 15% off your first purchase. Shannon, we would like to play a game. We call this game Fury or Fun. So we basically list off a few items and you tell us what you think. If you think that they're fun or if they make you furious.
Oh my gosh, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So the first thing on our list here is this concept of a dopamine detox. So this is like kind of a big buzzword thing right now. There's this whole book called Dopamine Nation, I believe, where researchers at Stanford have basically determined that the best way to like sort of quote reset your dopamine levels is to do a dopamine detox. So basically removing all like external sources of dopamine from your atmosphere. I would love to know what you think about that.
First of all, I tried to read the book Dopamine Nation and I hated it and I didn't finish it. So I already feel furious. I read Scarcity Brain, which is similar concept, and it was much better. So I will recommend that. My first instinct is that is really mean to ourselves. Life is short. I think we should do things that bring us joy, that make us happy, even if it is like on a psychological dopamine hit kind of a level. But we can do that in a really more generous and interpersonal way. We get dopamine when we give somebody a 6-second hug. You know what I mean? We get dopamine from decluttering, which is a great thing to do. So no, I don't want to go on a dopamine detox, but I want to go on a detox of the bad kinds of dopamine that just take money out of my pocket and hurt the planet.
Yeah. Love that.
Exactly. Amen.
Yeah.
Okay, mine is next. Blake Lively and Justin Baldini.
Is that it? Is that the prompt? Furious.
That's the prompt.
Furious. First of all, I don't want to waste my time on this. You know what I mean? I don't know what okay, let me rewind here. I'm sorry. I have wasted my time on this, but I don't want to. Okay, let me be clear. And I don't even know who to believe at this point. And all I know is that it is toxic and it is distracting us from more important matters. So furious.
Furious that we know more about Blake Lively and Justin Baldini than we ever thought we ever wanted to. And frankly, it's making us like them a lot less, both of them.
Both of them.
Both of them.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, next on our list here, over the top kids' birthday parties.
Oh, furious, obviously. Hello. I think that it's ridiculous. I love backyard birthday parties. Give me Red Rover, Red Rover. Give me just homemade cupcakes. I think that when we can get back to inviting people into our homes, even though that feels hard, decluttering helps with the hospitality. That can feel hard, but that is what creates community. And there's nothing more special than when I invite my kids' friends over for their birthday party and I set up a scavenger hunt in the house, and then the parents and I, we drink mimosas in the kitchen. And maybe you're like, I'm an introvert. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to deal with people at my house, whatever it might be. First of all, I hate small talk more than anyone, but I think that it's so important for us to get to know the parents of our kids' parents or whatever, or if they trust us enough to drop off their kid, we're taking care of another child. It's part of this communal feeling. And I just really believe that having at-home birthday parties is a really missed opportunity for kindness and generosity and hospitality in a way that kind of rebels against the isolation that our country has found itself in.
Yeah. Ooh,
I love that.
this is not on the topic of birthday parties, but you said it. You hate small talk. And Maggie and I, same thing. But I think about every time Shannon and I are together, we haven't seen each other in a full calendar year. This past year, we saw each other twice, which is crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, it's like diving straight in. It's like, how's your mental health? What's going on?
Yeah, 100%. Why waste time on anything else?
Absolutely.
Right, I don't care about the balloon arc and all the stuff and
and it just ends up in our trash can. Kids come home with goodie bags, and this is from school too, which you brought up earlier, but they come home and I'm like, this is just junk.
Right.
Throwing it away.
Right.
Okay, next one is Desantis DOGE. He just announced.
I can't. I honestly, it makes me so furious that I don't think I can even speak on it, because my husband obviously is in the military and much of his job has to do with working with civilians that are civilian government workers, and the just massive effect this is having on not only individuals, but really important missions that people claim they care about, right? They're like, oh, I don't want illegal immigrants to come in. Well, then you're going to need the ships that go and stop the illegal immigrants from coming in, which are the ships my husband is building, but he cannot build them if the people that he's working with are out of a job, right? So if you actually care about these things, let's slow our roll here and make some wise choices and not just, I mean, obviously you can tell I'm furious. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Totally understand. I also just find it hilarious that Florida, which has been run by Ron DeSantis for a decade, is going to introduce something to get rid of government overspending and corruption. Like, sir, who was running the government? It was you. You've been doing that. Okay. All right. Last one, Maggie.
Last one here is the $20 Erewhon strawberry.
What? What does that mean?
Have you seen it? It's a strawberry that comes in. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Beauty and the Beast, the rose that sits in the little clear thing. Shannon's going to look it up right now.
I'm literally Googling this.
Yeah, please Google it.
Erewhon strawberry. Oh, that's first thing that came up. A $19 strawberry has caused a stir online. This could have been my headline for today, you guys. I mean, I want to know. Food and wine. Please tell me, why does a single strawberry cost $19? That's their headline.
I believe it's a Japanese strawberry. It's big or something.
I can't even wrap my head around it, because I already spend most of my life savings on berries for my children. I'm not spending $19 on a single berry. And first of all, berries are never as good as you want them to be anyway. Usually they taste like they're giving you poison. So I'm not spending $19 on one. That's my answer.
100%.
I had that thought this morning. I was cutting up strawberries for Kevin and I ate one of them and I was like, this is actually not even good.
Right.
This thing cost us $10. This thing of strawberries.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to feed my kids the poisonous strawberries because I bought them, but they are terrible.
All $10 worth. Okay, so at the beginning of the show, we always talk about a beauty product that we can't live without, which I understand is the exact opposite of the entirety of this episode.
The antithesis of what we just did. But
as mentioned, it's all about balance, and we all use them. So what do you got?
So as I mentioned earlier, I know nothing about name brands. I really am pretty dumb when it comes to makeup. So I didn't really have a good answer. I wasn't like, I have this branded whatever, but I can just give you like a general type of makeup. And that is, and I don't even do a good job with it, which anyone watching this will obviously see, which is an eyebrow pencil. Because when I was in high school, I tweezed my eyebrows within an inch of their life, like all millennials did. And if I don't put some sort of eyebrow pencil on my eyebrows, I just look like a different person, and it's not a cute one. So that's my answer. Sorry, it's not a brand. You can't go buy it unless you just go to CVS.
That's okay. Everybody needs a brow pencil. Unless you're me and you got your brows done. And see, I'm saving the planet. I got my brows tattooed, and now I don't have to buy eyebrow pencil.
Perfect. Perfect. Look at you.
Oh, man. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. I feel better for having had this conversation. I know the people listening will as well. And it's just always such a pleasure to see your face and hear your voice.
Thank you, Mallory and Maggie, for having me. This was so much fun. I feel both lighter and a little bit more furious.
Perfect.